When someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to be part of Delta, I'm going to give them a realistic, like, yo, bro, this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be a walk in the fucking park. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to push you. But if you do what I tell you to do and you really give it your all, I'm going to give you my all and you're going to be successful. But it's going to suck, bro. Like, it's going to be challenging. And I almost want to scare them off the opportunity, because the people that don't get scared, they're like, fuck yeah, I want that. Then they're more likely to succeed.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Return on Investment MF channel. It's your host, Zack, ROI Williams. And this is the information your haters don't want you to hear about. Becoming the most badass version of yourself in business. What's going on, guys? It's Zack R.O. Williams back with another episode of Return on Investment MF channel. And today I got my man, Greg Bullsh here, and I'm super excited to bring him to you. This dude is a decorated Army veteran. So obviously, first and foremost, I got to say thank you for your service. But really, I want to introduce you both as a veteran, but also we're going to dive into, Delta Financial and what that means to you. So, Greg, go ahead, tell the people who you are, what you do, and let's get into it, bro.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, thank you for having me on the channel, bro. I really appreciate it, man. It's a humbling experience. So a little bit about me, I'm a Tennessee native. I grew up in the country. I'm a country boy. I grew up with veteran parents. Both my parents served in Vietnam. Always knew I wanted to serve growing up. And my senior year of high school was September 11th, 2001. And so I was a senior in high school, and literally I remember watching. I stayed home from school that day. I'll never forget it. I stayed home from school that day to actually spend the day with my girlfriend. And I woke up late, and my dad was up, which wasn't very normal at the time because he worked a third shift, but he was watching TV and he was just dumbfounded. And I walked in the living room, and it was very weird to see him. And I just turned around, looked at the TV, and the image I saw was the plane crashing in the Twin Towers. And I sat there for about 5 minutes in silence, my dad. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm going to war. So I knew, I was like, let's do this. So when someone comes on our soil, on our home turf, like,
yeah, no doubt.
So, I went to college. I got a ROTC scholarship, paid for my college. And in return, I had to serve as an officer for, a requirement. For me, it was 7 years because I paid in extra time in order to get a specific, job specialty, which is called a branch. Got a specific job specialty that I wanted to. So I ended up serving 11, deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan, had some awesome experiences, had some awesome training. I did a range from combat arms as an armor officer, which I started, and I switched over to military intelligence. And in military intelligence, my specialty function was human intelligence, which was interrogation, source operations, stuff like that. So I ran an interrogation facility in Afghanistan, worked with 3-letter agencies. It was really, can I curse on this?
Yo, fuck yeah, dude.
Okay. It was really fucking dope, bro. I had some fucking cool experiences, man. And, I got to the point where I ended up leaving the military, which we can dig into that and the reason why. But I ended up leaving the military 2017, found insurance on kind of had by happenstance. And I always knew I wanted to be in business for myself and be an entrepreneur. And this was an easy pathway into it with very little income, initial startup investment. And when I first started, I was like, I don't know about this. It seems kind of wonky, but yeah, man, I've been doing it ever since 2017. So I've been doing it for 5 years. And in the short 5 years, I've been doing insurance. I've went from, company to company as a captive agent, independent agent. I sucked at the beginning. It was terrible, like most people are in sales. And I was able to transition that to start focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on doing the right things in sales, became a record-breaking producer within a company, and started my own IMO, which is Delta Financial. And here we are.
Man. No, that's sick, bro. And I'm excited to kind of dive into this. First of all, I've got so much respect for you and everything that our, military does. I'm sure you hear this all the time, like, oh, I was gonna serve and I, all this crap, but
Yeah.
I've got a lot of respect for it because I actually tried to apply and got turned down twice for some bullshit reasons that now I'm sure they'd be like, oh, no, please, come on, it's fine. Fuck it. We don't care. Yeah, you're good. But regardless, I've got a lot of respect for that world and just everything that it encompasses. In fact, and something that we're going to discuss is I'm like dumbfounded by reading Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And I've got a lot of real interest into that. And also specifically, one of my friends is actually mentioned in that book and was Chris Kyle's second sniper. He was a sniper in the other regiment. And so it's a cool book.
It is. They're both fantastic books.
Yeah. And outside of me having some sort of, 2 or 3 person removed from the people that these books are written about, like one of my homies was like in the trenches with these guys. So for me, when I read it or even listen to it on Audible, it's like almost like I'm picturing my homie in these scenarios, which I mean, he literally was, but it's just, it's kind of a different mindset. But I love the concept and I love the idea because I had no idea. And I don't know if I'm just like naive or was lived under a rock my whole life, but I had no idea that the military was so much like not as regimented as like the movies make it seem. The movies make it seem it's like, oh no, your commanding officer tells you what the fuck to do, and that's what the fuck you do, and you don't ask questions, you don't talk back, you don't whatever. But after reading these books and hearing these stories and hearing how these guys, yeah, I get it, they did what they were told, but they also fucking did it their own way, and it worked out. And for me, I love how they took the lessons they learned from the military and apply it to business, apply it to mental state, apply it to motivation, apply it to their life. What is your take on these books? And what is your experience, if it is something similar, on how what you learned in the fucking trenches helped you apply to both who you are as a person now and in business?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. So I agree 100% with what you're saying in terms of sometimes it's not regimented and it's always a case by case basis. In the military, we would call it, we would say it's MET TC, which means mission, enemy, troops, terrain, time, and civilian casualties. So basically it's like the situational dependent. It's a good way of saying this is just, it depends on the situation.
Right.
And so, what my experience was the way that I was brought up in the military as an officer was I was always given like a left and right limit, and I would dance all in the gray area and just in order to get the job done.
Yeah.
And the more effective I was, the higher performing I was, the more I was given leeway.
Of course.
In order to get the job done. And I would just, and 9 times out of 10, my goal always as a junior leader was that for the leaders above me, like say for my commanding officer, I saw myself as a shield to prevent bullshit from getting through me to him or her.
Of course.
Okay. And so it was like, dude, I'm going to handle all this shit so that they don't even know about it. And if they do come and say, I'm going to be like, bro, already taken care of. I got you, dog. Don't even worry about it. Do you want to know the details? You probably don't, because it's taken care of.
Yeah.
And so I used to tell people, as an executive officer, which is a second in command of a company, as an executive officer, my job was really like the wolf from Pulp Fiction. I was that guy that I got the call in the middle of the night from a soldier that just got pulled over on a DUI, and he's at the gate. And oh, by the way, he's got like a dead hooker in the trunk. And he's like, sir, I need your help. And I'm like, all right, don't do anything. I'm 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And I'm like showing up and just solving the situation, sweeping it under the rug, getting it done. And then my commander is none the wiser. And the commander's like, hey, what happened to special so-and-so? Don't worry about it, sir. He's got the morning off. He's not going to be at PT this morning. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. And that's how it was.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I haven't really mentioned my homie's name. And now, per this conversation, since you brought it up, I'm gonna leave his name extracted from the record. But like, I heard some insane stories, bro, and from him, and the concept really intrigued me because he's got some similar stories, right? And I'm not here to say that this is right or wrong or whatever the conversation.
Hey, soldiers do some dumb shit, bro.
Well, so that leads me into like one of the points that he brought up was we get trained to go to another country that we don't know, not knowing what is held behind any door or around any corner, and be trained killers. I mean, you got to think about these guys. I mean, these guys were door kickers is what I call them. Like, these motherfuckers were the guys in the shit. And he was like, we're supposed to be trained killers. We're supposed to be like violent people in the best possible way, obviously aimed strictly towards like terrorism and terrorists and things of that nature. But you know, when getting just thrown back into society or getting thrown, back into the world on leave or whatever, and they do some dumb shit, it's like, bro, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot mentally train us to be this type of war machine when you want and have an on and off switch and then put us back into society with, this could probably be a whole nother fucking conversation about, with no help and no, mental stability or coaching or PTSD resolvents or any of that. But like, I guess we won't get into all that, but this shit's real, dog. Like, y'all are some bad motherfuckers.
So I'm gonna tell a story. It's just as funny. So my first deployment,
phenomenal episode. I'm fucking pumped.
My first deployment was in Iraq, bro. It was in Iraq. I'm gonna tell two stories. Okay. So in Iraq, I served with an infantry company. I was an executive officer for an infantry company. I was an armor officer at the time. And what they did is I was in a combined arms battalion. So what they do is they combine, they split, they have two armor companies, two infantry companies, and they split them in half and they combine them so that when I was in this infantry company, one of my platoons was an armor platoon, which had tanks and Bradleys. And then the infantry companies or infantry platoons had just Bradleys. So basically I was there as a liaison to help the infantry company commander on like this, these are the tactics and this is how you utilize this armor platoon more effectively. Right. So I'm in Iraq and I served the whole Iraq tour with this infantry company, which was awesome, man. Like I got to do, I was on mission like all the fucking time. I got to see some cool shit. I also got to see some crazy shit, but dude, these kids, they find ways to do some of the dumbest shit. So we had these Iraqi checkpoints that were called the Sons of Iraq. Okay. And so what we did was we paid with US government dollars, we paid a Iraqi militia, which was managed in RAO, was managed by a guy named Mullah Majid, who was the dirtiest motherfucker. He was like the Godfather, right? And we paid him. And then he picked all of his like lieutenants and everything. And then they picked exactly to be the checkpoints. And there was a checkpoint every single mile on every single road across our entire area of operations. And the point was that they're supposed to be there, man, 24/7. And they would prevent anyone from coming in and digging up and putting an IED in the ground, right? That was the concept. So that we wouldn't have to worry about IEDs. We still, at any time, we'd still get IEDs. But then we would, if we had an ID in an area, we knew that checkpoint wasn't being manned, and then we'd fucking hammer that person that was supposed to be on, on duty. So anywho, what did my fucking soldiers do? One, you're in vehicles for a long time. So what do? They end up pissing in bottles. We get these massive bottles, right? And they just piss in bottles all the time. So they thought it'd be funny to fucking put these bottles into a freezer and freeze them. And then they start chucking them out the back of the vehicles and like trying to hurl them at these checkpoints.
Oh my God.
At these American checkpoints, which is fucking ridiculous, by the way. But that's like their way of being like, I'm gonna fuck with these people. You know?
Right.
Well, they're smart enough to know that, hey, there's these vehicles that have, because we have on all the vehicles, it has the marker of the platoon, the squad, the company, but they know, they're not stupid. We've been there long enough, right? Even though they don't speak the language all the time. So what do? They freaking works up the chain. It gets to Moulin Majid. Moulin Majid goes straight to our battalion commander. And our battalion commander calls in me and the company commander. And it's like me and the company commander and the platoon leader at the time. And it's like, what the fuck is this soldier doing? Because he had it down to the fucking soldier. He knew before we knew.
Oh my God.
It was like, it was this gunner on this day doing this. Like they fucking identified it. We were like, God damn it. It's like, that's the kind of bullshit, like antics that they would do. That's just one thing. And that's, these kind of stories happen the entire deployment. Like, because you get bored, you're constantly on mission, you're doing the same shit over and over again. So, you know, this is the kind of shit that they're doing. They're trying to find ways to, because like Groundhog's Day, man, you're stuck on one little base unless you go out and you find unique ways to entertain yourself. And there's these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that are being trained to go out, defend the country, be killers, like you were saying. Fucking immature.
Bro, I mean, shit, I remember how I was, you know, at 18, 19, 20, shit.
Yeah.
And I was in a normal fucking environment, bro. Like I had whatever I needed to consume my time versus being bored out of my mind, riding around in a completely uncomfortable Bradley all day long, dusty, dirty, stinky guy. Yeah, bro.
Dude, it was just insanity, the entire deployment. So we get back. So next story is we get back, and we were back maybe not even, it was like 30 days. Like we just got back. We got through reintegration training. We have to go through counseling. You're forced to see a psychiatrist, and you're basically, everyone's just like, I'm good. Every question, like, oh, I'm good. Because you're just trying to get right back into training. So I get a phone call late at night, and it's this soldier, and it's like Specialist Johnson. Specialist Johnson's like, sir, you need to come get me. And I'm like, where the fuck are you? He was picked up. So I was at Fort Hood at the time, and I lived on base, but it was in Killeen, which is the city outside of Fort Hood, Texas. He was picked up by the Killeen PD. And apparently, so if you know anything about Killeen, there's a road.
My wife is from there. Well, not from there, but she lived there for a few years.
Dude, Rancier Avenue is fucking like,
I'm about to
gang
text her Rancier Avenue right now. She's like, who the fuck are you talking to, and what do they want?
It is gangland, bro. Like when I got to Fort Hood, we were briefed like, hey, if someone hits you at night, like hits you at a stoplight or something like that, do not get out of your car. It's a gang initiation that when you get out to exchange insurance, they shoot you and drive off on Rancier. And it was like, fuck, where did I go to?
Yeah.
So this kid in the middle of the night wanted to score some coke.
God bless.
And the guy he was getting coke from,
I'm assuming it wasn't hard for him to find.
No, not at all. But the guy wanted to sell it to him on Rancier Avenue. And he's like, well, fuck, that's like a war zone in and of itself. So what does he do? He puts on every single bit of his fucking gear from deployment. So he puts on his fucking body armor, his Kevlar, and he's in civilian clothes in the middle of the night. Which, by the way, this is before the MCUs, like the multicams, which are darker. These were the old ACUs, which were like the light gray, and they look like gravel, and they shine in the fucking night. So he's in the middle of the night, running across the
RoboCop,
running across the street back and forth, doing this fucking drug deal in fucking ACU combat gear. Of course the cops are going to see this shit. Picked his ass up. And I was like, fuck
Bro.
me, man. Like,
Dude.
what the fuck are you thinking? So what did I have to do? I had to go pick his ass up. I had to sweep this shit under the rug and be like, and like basically talk to the cops and be like, hey, look, like we just got back from deployment. He's got PTSD. He's all kinds of fucked up. I'm going to take him to the barracks right now. Please release him to me. I'm going to get him taken care of. Let me handle this, you know, and it helped. I'm a captain in the United States Army. There's a specialist. I'm like, I got this kid. And that when they see a captain, they automatically think commander, even though I wasn't his commander at the time. So I basically just like completely helped this kid out, made it to where he didn't get a record or anything. Went to the commander and was just like, hey, sir, if you hear about anything with Special Johnson's taken care of, don't ask questions. And he was like, all right. Like, okay.
Dude, this shit's nuts, man. And it's funny because I could sit here and tell these stories all day long, or not tell them, but listen to them. And because of that, somehow I always end up in these conversations with people like you, veterans and stuff that have got the craziest fucking stories. And I'm just like sitting here with my jaw dropped because like, I don't know jack shit of this outside of like what y'all tell me and fucking blockbuster movies. So like in my head, I'm like, dude, these military veterans are the most buttoned up, tight, smart, like just maybe not smart, jarhead shit, right? But like other than that, like, like it just makes you do this right now, right here, as I say, jump, how high kind of shit. Yeah. And it's like, bro, that shit is nothing like that, dude. And again, maybe that's just me being a little naive and this and that, but it's just these stories are hilarious. But so that's some serious shit that in the time, like I'm sure was, it's funny now. I'm sure it wasn't funny at the time,
No, man.
having to figure that shit out. And so like, here you are as a problem solver and having to think on your feet. I'm sure when you decided to go in and start leading these guys that you didn't think you were going to have to worry about them running around in fucking gear on fucking Rancier Avenue trying to score some coke. So how do you take some of these lessons, both whether it be life and death, things that are kind of funny now, like this story, things that are just completely out of left field? You can't plan for it. Like there's literally, I genuinely believe that you can't plan for anything over there. Now, can you use some previous experience and stuff like that to at least be understanding of what the opportunities are? But I believe that in war, just like with over here, just bad people, some of these people are smart for the wrong reasons, right? Like, dude, we completely not in the same fucking avenue, but we had some people steal some money from our bank accounts through Wells Fargo, and the way they went about it was so ingenious. And I'm always thinking to myself, it's like, there's people out there that are trying to do good, trying to stop bad things from happening, but the bad guys are always trying to find ways around that. So from the experience that you had over there and just everything involved with that, whether it's back on US soil or not, how did you allow the lessons you learned about thinking on your feet, being ready to pivot at any moment in time, if you're always ready, you don't ever have to get ready kind of attitude? How did you apply that into the entrepreneurial world, or maybe even more specifically, how do you use your training over there to help you build Delta Financial over here?
So to answer, there's a couple of lessons I learned. A is the first most important one is that when I got selected to do armor as a cadet, I was given the biography of General George S. Patton, who was a fucking boss. Okay. And I loved that book. It was a great book. I read it my senior year of college, right before I was graduating. And one of his most famous quotes is that a 70% solution executed violently is better than 100% solution executed late. And too often people are indecisive about what decision to move with. And what they don't realize is they're they're really like splitting hairs between good and slightly better decision.
Right.
And even if they wait to do the slightly better, there's still going to be things that change along the way.
Right.
Like change is inevitable. And you having to problem solve is part of the fucking business. And no matter what industry you're in, you're gonna have to problem solve. You're going to have to, completely be flexible, right? Semper Gumby, right? So, I had a really good mentor when I was in Iraq, Major Sean Kramer, who I believe is a full bird colonel now. I don't know if he's still in. I think last time I checked, he's still in. He was a full bird colonel. Great dude, man. He was just a phenomenal fucking officer. And I saw many times when we were getting attacked and when we were in the most stressful situations, he was the battalion XO while I was the company XO, and I would go to him all the time. And one thing he taught me when I needed something, he would always listen to everything I needed. Like he'd be like, "Hey, Greg, what have you tried so far?" And I'm like, "Well, I've tried this, I've tried this, tried this." And he'd be like, "Huh, have you thought about this?" And I'd be like, "Oh no." And he wouldn't give me the answer, but he'd give me almost like a hint or like a little kernel of information to get me thinking, so that I could come up with the answer myself. And so I really appreciated that. So, and he never like handheld me. He always challenged me. But the other thing is that when we were getting in the shit, when we were getting mortared at times or we were under attack, he was the most calm, cool-headed dude. He wouldn't freak out. And I saw what had happened with all the soldiers that were in the staff under the S3 at the time. Whenever something like that would happen, you'd have all these soldiers that are all like there's like a tactical operations center, and there's all these computers, and there's a huge screen, and we got like all these assets, and there's people on radios, and he's just very calm, and he's just directing traffic. Hey, and he's like, "Hey, we're under attack. Specialist Johnson, I need you to go ahead and call up the Alpha Company commander and get a better situation. Hey, Sergeant so-and-so, I need you to call up battalion. We need eyes in the sky." Hey, and he was just like very calmly directing traffic without freaking out, And when he did a replacement halfway through the deployment, he did a replacement with the current battalion S3, and they switched positions. So they both got experience. That fucking clown. He was God. It was like every single time the smallest thing happened, it was like fucking his hair was on fire and he was just screaming. And what that did was all the soldiers start freaking the fuck out.
Anxiety, bro. Anxious.
And they would just be like fucking lemmings running into each other, just fucking not knowing what to do. And I saw the dichotomy between those two. And I was like, yeah, I'd rather be the guy that stays calm. And so what I learned was ultimately when situations happen, initial reporting is almost always false. Don't react. And sometimes situations will handle themselves. So give it some time, give it some patience, let it digest. Do not react emotionally.
Right.
And so that's actually helped me a lot in business, where if I have a situation comes and someone's calling me, freaking me out, I just listen and I say, okay, what about this? What about that? What about that? Okay. And if I don't have an answer to it right now, I'll be like, let me think about this, and I'll give it a day.
Right.
And I'll be like, let me think about this. And now I'm going to mull it over in the old noodle. And then one of a couple of things happens. Either they come back like, oh no, actually it's taken care of. It's done. Okay, perfect. I'm glad it's taken care of. Or I can come back and say, hey, have you thought about this? And they're like, oh man, I never thought about that. Hey, perfect. Go try that. And we'll see what happens. Or if it's something that really is that bad, well, I've given time so I did not react emotionally. 9 times out of 10, when you react emotionally, what's going to happen is you're going to make it worse.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Because I've done that.
Well, you're not thinking correct.
Yeah.
You're not using the proper amounts of your brain or parts of your brain to be able to think 100% critically. It's funny you say that too, about taking time, because I know it's kind of a completely different, strategy or subject, but like, one of my dedications this year is really honing in and holding true to my time blocks. Last year I started my time blocking and it was really good to an extent. And it got to the point to where it was like I would always sacrifice my time blocks that only I was responsible for someone or for ones that involve someone else. Right. So now this year, you know, I'm really trying to refine that to where, like, obviously, like, I got this podcast episodes obviously time blocked. I have a lot more responsibility to that because now it's not just my time I fuck up, it's yours as well if I, you know, fault on that. But I'm taking that same level of intensity to my personal time blocks too, where last year I didn't. So for example, if a client hits me up freaking out, asking me some crazy shit, asking me for this, asking me for that, asking for a resolution, yada, 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 and I abide by that and I give into it, that's my time that obviously I can't get back. And so this year already, just in a short, you know, few days, I've noticed it's happened 2 or 3 times now where clients reached out, asked for something, but I have held true to my time blocks. I've held true to my power list. I've held true to my checklist and everything that I'm trying to get done for the day, and holding true to, like, no, this time is dedicated for this. Even though it's just myself, where typically I would have picked up my phone, gone to my email, found it, gone, sent them the link again, this, that, whatever. 3 times now in just less than a week, the issue's resolved itself. I've gotten like 2 or 3 messages. Hey, I really need this. I need this right now. And then all of a sudden, never mind, found it. Or, oh shit, sorry, I looked in the wrong area. Or, oh, Tiffany had it, or whatever. And I'm like, you motherfuckers, how much time did I waste last year dealing with this bullshit? You know, and I could have just, like you said, molded over, slapped on it, and, you know, been able to calm my brain down, all those chemicals, let those settle, so that you can truly utilize the parts of your brain that you know, you need to make those critical decisions.
Yeah. And another thing that I learned was, you know, when I did source operations training, which was really, it was a fucking cool training, where we would learn how to run sources and run source operations at a clandestine level. And one of the things that, like, it was a very challenging course because we had so much to learn in such a short time frame, and it was designed that you were going to fail at things, like you were gonna fuck up. And so it's like juggling. It's like somebody going into a room and like throwing a bunch of tennis balls in the air, and you had to catch all of them. Like, you're not going to catch every single one. And then every day they do the same thing. And it's like, you're going to let tennis balls fall. You just don't want to let the same ones fall continuously. Does that make sense? So you can't make the same mistake over and over again. They want you to fail because they want you to learn from that, but they don't want you to make that same mistake over and over and over again. That's where you have a problem, where you're just not learning. And so, I learned from that. I learned, you know, how to take in large amounts of information and have long conversations with somebody, like even generated out of fucking thin air, which that's what we had to do, is generate these conversations out of thin air in order to try to become friends with these people, enough that they would give us information. Right. And then we would eventually, like, recruit them, and then we would pay them and do all this stuff. And we would run a whole operation. But it was probably the most beneficial training that I did, because I would have to, like, literally memorize all these different meetings, and meetings would go an hour and a half. And I had to know everything I was going to say for this whole entire hour and a half. On top of knowing what I had to say, I had to track everything that they said, because when I got back, I had to write a report on everything they said. And then I had to write a report on everything about that person, their mannerisms, their tone of voice, if they seemed off, why I thought they seemed off. If they drank coffee, how many fucking sugars did they take in it? Right? Like, I had to capture everything. If I saw somebody there that was off-putting, I had to put that in the report about when I saw it, what the time frame was. Like, everything had to be captured. I had to capture the route there when I drove to the meeting. Hey, did I see any cars following me? Right? If I did, what was the make and model? What was the how many people were in the car? What was the description of the people? I had to do the same thing on the way back. I had to plan my route there and back. I had to look for surveillance, you know, and detect surveillance. And if I did detect it, I had to lose the surveillance because I could not do the meeting while I'm being surveilled. it was like all these, it was level upon level upon level of all this fucking shit, right?
Go ahead, keep going.
I was gonna say that I had to like manage, which it's a fucking headache, to be honest. But you get used to it, and they add in little bit by little bit by little bit to where like by the end you're handling all this shit, and people can't even fucking remember a fucking script that's a 60-second script, and that boggles my mind. And I'm like, dude, I can remember a fucking hour and a half long conversation and come back and literally type out the entire conversation, almost word for word what they said.
That's insane. How much of that bleeds over into your entrepreneurial life? So like, for example, this is obviously a very, very, timid, mild version of this, but like, for example, a lot of first responders and a lot of military like won't sit with their backs to a door, right? Or things like that. So like, obviously that's a very mild, version of that, but how much of like that type of training that you receive from the military, obviously, higher up, bleeds over into your entrepreneurial world?
It's more like a personal life thing. Every once in a while, so I do pay attention when I drive now. It's just a weird thing now.
Yeah.
So if I make 2 turns and I see the same exact car after 2 turns, then now I'm going to change the route of how I'm going to get to the next place. It's not going to be the most direct route. I'm going to do something off-putting, and I'm going to see if they follow me. And it's just because I was trained in surveillance detection.
Yeah.
So I was like, why is this person fucking following me? Even though they may not be.
Right.
So, and I would do like a stair step method in order to get to that location. So instead of like going all the way down to the light and hanging a left, I'm going to hang a left earlier and I'm going to stair step into it. Right. And make it to where it's a little bit different, which most people wouldn't do. Right. So, and if they follow me, then I'm like, then I know this person's following me. Now I'm going to I'm just going to walk up to them like, hey, why the fuck are you following me? Which in the military, you wouldn't do that. You just want to seem as boring as possible to where that they're like, oh, this guy's a nobody. And then they stop following you. Anywho, in terms of like how this applies to my business, I think it's just the ability to take on more and more pressure. Right. And being able to problem solve, which we talked about at the beginning, being able to take on more and more and more, like, what's business like when you first get into it, right? Like, how much do you know about business now versus what you knew about when you first started? Right. And there's always more things that are getting added to it, like setting up your fucking LLC or your S Corp status, and then paperwork you have to do, and setting up your business bank account. And then, you got to get an accountant, and here's how you got to categorize all your expenses. And then, and by the way, this is, you got to hire somebody. And then how are you going to hire them? What are they going to be hired under? What status? Are they going to be a 1099 employee or W-2? Like, all these things are kind of added in slowly, and it's like layer upon layer. Whereas when you first started, you didn't know anything about that shit, but you educate yourself along the way, and it's just added. So like, where you're at as an entrepreneur, a business owner on year 2, 3, or 4, where I'm at year 5 in insurance, dude, the problems I have now, if I'd have had it my first year, I would have fucking quit, bro.
Right.
I would not have made it, because it would have crumbled me. But the problems that I have now are significantly larger, but I've built myself up to be able to handle those to appropriately and find unique solutions, because I've been through so many other problems. And I believe that the training in the military that I received helped teach me those concepts, like the situations and the training.
I'm sure you learned that a lot quicker than I did, because, it's funny that you bring that up, because like, I look at the last 3 years that I've been, in the private sector, and it's crazy to me how, it's like you solve an issue and in your head, you're like, cool, we're smooth sailing from now on. And then it's like, boom, that next problem comes, and you've now become more qualified to handle this issue because you've made it through the previous issues. But then it's like that hits you again, another problem you got to solve. and then you solve that one and you're like, all right, cool. Like say, for example, it's like, all right, cool. I personally just hired a new CEO. So I have a CEO to help handle all the day-to-day. In my head, if I hadn't seen this in a repetition over the last 3 years, I'd be like, cool. Zack has no more worries. Everything's going to be smooth sailing now. It's like, no, there's going to be another issue that I'm going to have to solve. That's either going to feel, less as intense of some of the issues that I've solved prior, because we've solved some pretty serious issues, or it's going to feel about the same. And it's not that problem is 100 times crazier than the problems I was solving three years ago. And even though it doesn't feel like it's 100 times,
you're acclimated.
I'm acclimated. So therefore I'm, I've gotten mentally tough. I've gotten more education. I've learned how to problem solve easier and easier. So it's crazy that you bring that up, and I can totally see how someone with prior military experience can really apply to giving you a step ahead in the civilian world, or in the entrepreneurial world rather. So like, I want to be cognizant of your time. So I want to kind of roll into this last segment we have. And I want to hear from you, from Greg's mouth, because, this is a tagline that you have, and I want to see what this truly means to you, because I feel like, with all these taglines and stuff, everything's up for interpretation. But for you, someone that uses this phrase, I want to hear what that means to you. So what does be the difference, redefine, and excellence? What does that mean to Greg?
What does that mean? So Delta Financial, my company, a lot of people think Delta Financial is like Delta Force from my military, roots, right. And it's not. The Delta in Delta Financial is from the Delta sign, which is the Greek symbol, which is the difference between, or the change between things.
Okay.
And so and also is kind of a homage. It's a dual hat, I think. So
right.
So and Delta Force, by the way, is also being the difference. They're different human beings, right?
Yeah. So
when I came up with Delta Financial, my tagline was be the difference. And here's my thoughts is, I'm in the insurance industry. I've been in 2 captive companies. I've been in 2 other IMOs before 3 other IMOs before I started Delta Financial. And what I've noticed and what I've seen across the financial industry in terms of insurance, now this isn't for every company. So if there's some motherfucker watching, like, well, my company's got good leadership, shut the fuck up. I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about my experiences. So I've noticed a massive lack of leadership. Like, right. And the way leadership versus a manager is managers care about performance. They care about do more sales, buy more leads, recruit more people, more. Leaders tap into people's potential and they lift them up to a higher station.
I love it.
And so it's the difference between performance and potential. And there's not a lot. There's almost no leaders. Most of the people that I've met in insurance that are like high level leaders, quote unquote, self-proclaimed leaders, these are motherfuckers that have done nothing in their life. They're fucking like grocery baggers before they started insurance. And then they fucking like found some way to sell at a high level. And then all of a sudden now they're a leader. No, you're not a leader. You've never been formally trained. You haven't led people in fucking combat. You don't know what you're doing. And all you're doing is you're trying to get people to churn them through this industry. And that's what happens is that they're not real. They don't set realistic expectations of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. What is it going to be like on a day-to-day basis? What kind of challenges are you going to face? How hard and how difficult is this going to be? Like when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to be part of Delta, I'm going to give them a realistic, like, yo, bro, this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be a walk in the fucking park. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to push you. But if you do what I tell you to do and you really give it your all, I'm going to give you my all and you're going to be successful. But it's going to suck, bro. Like it's going to be challenging. And I almost want to scare them off the opportunity, because the people that don't get scared, they're like, fuck yeah, I want that. Then they're more likely to succeed. Right. And so almost across the board, across all insurance companies, what you have is these people that they're recruiting everybody. It's just like it's like a lottery system. They're just like throwing it all on black and just keep betting, looking for the jackpot. They're looking for somebody that's going to do the work regardless. And that's 1 out of every 10 people, maybe.
Right.
Maybe. Like It's a small percent. It's more like 1 out of every 100 people. It's like a 1%. So literally, like the numbers were always, we were told when I was recruiting big in other companies, it's like, you got to recruit 100 people to get 5 writers. And I was like, how about I recruit 5 people to get 5 writers? How about that? Because then I can put systems and processes in place to weed these people, these other 95 out. So I'm not wasting my time with them, and they're not wasting their time or money either. Right. Like I'm setting realistic expectations, and they're like, oh, it's stupid. They literally would like laugh at me. And I'm like, no, you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know how to lead people. And so that's why I kept leaving companies. I was like, because I wasn't in alignment. And here's the other thing, and you'll probably appreciate this because we're both in Apex. None of these fucking companies have any core values. They have 0 fucking core values. They have 0 culture. It's just like, oh, just come here and make money. Like, there's 0 reason to work with them. They don't even have a company structure. It's like, dude, you hire every single living monitor licker out there, whether they, if they get a pulse, even if they don't got a pulse, you're fucking like trying to resuscitate them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you have nothing that you stand by. Like, so the first thing I did when I created Delta Financial, I created my core values. I started creating culture from the ground up. And I was like, I'm going to be the difference in this fucking industry. I'm going to show them what real leadership looks like. And I'm going to make it to where they're either they're going to look over and be like, shit, we need to do something because this guy's actually growing. Like, we need to jump on board this whole leadership thing. Which I would love. Here's why. Because then if their company starts training better leaders, guess what? All the agents in that company are going to be the beneficiaries of great leadership.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. I mean, it all starts at the top, dude. And if, there's a big difference between having a boss and having a leader. And I agree with that 100%. I like the whole leadership versus manager outlook on things. You got to invest in your people. You got to have core values. You have to have a mission. You have to know what's fucking going on and what the true reason behind it. I mean, insurance, it's not fucking pretty, but it's very fucking important. You know what I mean? And if people could take that a lot more seriously, I think that would help the world out, specifically. But dude, I thank you so much. This has been an extremely, extremely fun episode. My
pleasure, brother.
Yeah, man, this is probably I think this is my longest episode. It's just, I get so tied into these stories and really just the concepts and strategies on how you can utilize what your training and your education of like real life, getting your hands dirty in the field, serving our country to the entrepreneurial world. I think that's fucking insane. But Greg, thank you so much, dude. If anyone's like watching this, listening to this, how can they listen to your podcast? How can they connect with you? What is it? How can you help them with your insurance company? Like, what is it that they can do to reach out to you so that, you can take this to the next level for them if they listen to this episode and really fuck with you?
Yeah. So the best way to reach out to me is my Instagram. It's Gregory A. Birch, BIRCH_. You can't miss it. I have an unlocked profile, like it's opened up. I do content basically every single day. I do a lot of reels and content in order to help inspire, motivate for sales, leadership, mindset. I'm big on mindset stuff, hence the fucking sign behind me. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's Be the Difference Podcast. You can find it on the Be the Difference Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then it goes live on my LinkedIn and my Facebook, but you can find those 3 platforms easily. If you want to learn more about Delta Financial, if you're in insurance or if you're interested in finding out about insurance, you can make a shit ton of money there. It's a hard work. It's not for everybody, but it's like any other, entrepreneurial opportunity. You can check out my website, which is deltafinanciallife.com. I have my core values up there, my vision, my mission of the company, who I am. We have training videos on there. I keep everything very open. I like to help as many agents as possible. So if you ever have any questions, reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. You can send me a message through my website in order to reach out to me. I'm really open to help out, and really any entrepreneur. If you're in sales in any way, shape, or forms, then I'd be happy to help.
That's awesome, man. And we're going to go ahead and put the links in the description below. So if you want to connect with him, definitely check him out. I highly recommend you at least reach out, follow him, and just see who he's about and take that next step. But Thank you so much, Greg, for being here. It's been a fucking honor. I appreciate this more than you know. But my name is Zack ROI Williams, and this is the Return on Investment MF channel. Peace. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Now, if you want, you can find out more information about me and what we do at zackroiwilliams.com. See you on the next video.